Hi, my name is Rachel Smith, and I'm the manager at Venvi Art Gallery. And today I'm with Cheryl Eggleston to talk about her works in her exhibition with Anne Stagg, titled "Hidden Layers, Visible Boundaries." It's nice to have you here, Cheryl.
Well, thank you for having me, Rachel. I'm very excited to do the show here at Venvi.
And you do a lot of abstract and surrealist works. Would you mind talking about your works?
Well, there are three different types of work in this show. There are abstract landscapes, which lean toward the surreal, and there's a couple of non-objective pieces of work, and then there's some fantasy work. The abstract landscapes are, like I said, they lean toward the surreal. The non-objective pieces are pure design, focusing on composition, depth, movement, repetition, color, form. And then the fantasy pieces there are five of them in this show, and that's my lighter side. And like everyone, I enjoy a little humor in my work life, and that's how I achieve it.
Nice. And your work in Hidden Layers, Visible Boundaries convey your thoughts, feelings, and who you are. What were you thinking and feeling when creating the works featured in this exhibition?
Well, like I said, there's three different types of work, and so each type of work is a different area of interest to me, and so I really have no um, pattern that I set that I intentionally uh, say I'm going to do X amount of abstract work right now. Normally, I go with the feeling that I have. For example, I painted an abstract landscape a couple years ago. It was a dark piece. The name of it was Nightmare, Bell, Box, and Bowl, and it was a disturbing piece. I really didn't even want to paint it, but the image would not leave me until I painted it. So I painted it, and then it released me of this hanging desire to do something about that image in my head. And so after that, I decided I needed to lighten it up a little bit. So that's when I came up with the idea of the fantasy paintings of the traveling tabletops. The traveling tabletop fantasies came to me as an idea to lighten my atmosphere in my studio and in my head. And so I came up with the idea that I would have a little tabletop that would be populated with different items or images, either gadgets and widgets or nonsensical things, miscellaneous things that could be related to each other or maybe to the background or not at all. And each time a new painting would be presented, it would show up in a different location. So the tabletop would travel. Sometimes it would be inside, it could be outside, it could be daylight, nighttime. Anything that my imagination decided to put it to, that's where the tabletop would travel to. So it was fun to do that, and I thought there's certainly limitless amount of things I could do with that idea. But I've done 6 altogether, and then I did 3 small lights. I call them lights. They're little tiny pieces, and they're
Yeah. And Alkid's your primary medium of choice. How long have you worked with Alkid?
Oh, yes. Well, I hate to say it, more years than I'd like to say. I first learned about Alkid when I was in art school many years ago, and I elected to study graphic design and visual communications, and I was actually interested in advertising. And I only stayed in advertising for 2 years, and then I left it. It was not for me. But while I was in art school, you have deadlines in commercial art. You do not have the luxury to work in oil. So we worked in acrylics and watercolor, gouache, ink, pencil. But we had one instructor who was a professional illustrator, and he worked in Alkid, and I had never heard of it before. So I love it. It's a fast drying oil paint. It's technically technically a resin based paint, but you clean it up and thin it with mineral spirits and so forth. But it dries to a beautiful finish. It's a very tough surface. It's not easy. It's not easily harmed. And for my style of painting, it works very well to me.
And what inspired you to paint abstract over other styles of art?
Well, for me, I admire people who can do realism, for example, to the level that very few people can actually pull off. Because with realism, you can spot right away when there's something wrong because it doesn't look right, especially like in portraiture. So artists that do that have my deepest respect. But for me, I looked at my life and I thought, do I want to spend the number of years that it would take me to reach that level that I would be satisfied with it? And I thought, no, that's going to take me more time and labor that I really want to put into developing my art. And also, I love the freedom of abstraction. I know some people say, well, it's very difficult with abstraction because it is limitless. And where do you put those limits? But those are all self imposed. You just pick them and go with it. And so I lean towards surrealism, which was one of the first offshoots of abstraction. I love it because I can play with my imagination and let some of my dreams and memories go in and out of the work.
Yeah. And I noticed you have more works from your September series in this exhibition, alongside works in Venvi that are already on display with September in their title. What's the meaning behind this series? September is a significant month for you? If so, why?
September is the beginning of the harvest season. And the September series is a group of abstract landscapes that are based on memories and fluid memories that I have from my grandfather's farm when I was a little girl. And of course, in September, there's a lot of activity on the farm. And it's always fun. And for children, I think the fall, although it's the beginning of school year, and sometimes that's a little intimidating for a shy child or introvert like I was, but it also means fun times. It means Halloween, it means Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year, holidays, breaks from school. But also, it's the reason that series fascinated me so much and came so easily to me was because I was drawing on bits of memory and bits of dreams. There's something, I know everyone has had this situation happen where you wake up suddenly from a dream and you can't, for the life of you, remember what that dream was, but you feel something that left you with that dream. From that dream, there was something that just won't go away and you cannot recall the dream. So when I'm working on an abstract landscape, something like that, where I'm sort of drawing on a memory, I'm sort of drawing on a dream, that's the feeling that I pursue in myself when I'm making those pieces of art. That's where I go to get that feeling so I could portray this vague sense of something. And you'll see a sky, you might see houses or outbuildings or sheds. On the farm they had, there was a little house where the house field, they employed a man who stayed on the land. He had his own little house there. And then there was chicken coops, and there were all of these different buildings that fascinated me. So that's where September series came from.
Oh, wow. And I also noticed some of the pieces in your exhibition have titles referencing classic stories like Alex in Otherland being similar to Alice in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. Is there any meaning behind that?
Well, those are the fantasy lights that I had mentioned before. When I'm working on a series, like September series, I had no problem staying on track because I had a specific thing I was trying to convey. When I'm working on something like a fun series, I can drift. By the third or fourth painting, other ideas are starting to creep in because I'm not working on one specific idea or theme like I was with September series. I'm now looking at a diversion of things. My next painting is going to be underwater. My next painting is going to be in outer space. The tabletop is going to travel. So it's easy for your mind to move around. Well, I got the idea that I'd do some tiny little pieces that are 12 by 12s, and I'd call them fantasy lights. And instead of focusing on the background, there is no background in these, they're on a foggy gray background. I decided to take the names of children's stories or fairy tales or whatever and put a twist on them. So Alice in Wonderland became Alex in Otherland, and Mary Had a Little Lamb became Marty Had a Little Lamp, and the Wizard of Oz became the Lizard of Soz, just to put some levity in my working life in the gallery.
Oh, and when looking at your piece, Dish Garden, it seems to have less hard edges and geometric shapes and is a bit less abstract compared to your other works. It appears to have more representational subject matter, which is not found often in abstract art most of the time. Is there a meaning behind this stylistic choice compared to your other works in this exhibition?
No, not really. Now that's just a perfect example of me drifting off, because Dish Garden is probably painting number 4, or I don't know what number it was, but by then I'm starting to drift. It's hard to, like we were talking, when you have no limits or your limits are imposed in what you're going to do, but when you broaden it out, it's easy for other things to fall into this category that you're doing. So that's all. It was just something that I was working on, and my little imagination decided it wanted to go that way.
And how would you describe your art in 3 words? This can include your pieces in the exhibition Hidden Layers, Visible Boundaries, or all of your works in general.
I would say clean, tight, and thought-provoking. Clean and tight because a personality trait I think that I can't help. I like things nice and tidy. So my work tends to have that because it's my hand. Every painting, I like to see the artist's hand in the painting. I like to be able to know that that person likes really straight lines. That person likes really clean edges. This person doesn't like unfinished things. This person is, and you might see another artist and go, I love the looseness of this painting. And it carries through that artist's body of work. So this is me. This is me.
And what is your favorite piece you've created for this exhibition and why?
I think every artist has so many. They're all favorites. Well, not all, but there are certain favorites. Probably would be A Gathering of Survivors. It's my biggest piece here. And I say that because I painted that painting in 2020. We were really in the pretty bad stages of COVID. And so the painting is a tribute to COVID survivors. And in that painting, it's kind of divided into 2 parts. The top part is I picture humans as marbled statuary that have been all broken and then patched back together rather haphazardly. They just all stuck together. And they come out of the woods. They've made it out of the woods, so to speak. And then they take their positions on stands like trophies because they've won. They have beat COVID. Then the bottom part of the painting, there's these unbroken types of gray statuary. And it's up to the viewer to decide who they are. I call them the witnesses. But the viewer can decide that these were the people that survived without ever having the virus touch them, or are they people that got the virus and succumbed to it? So that's something that the viewer gets to decide. And I guess that for that reason, it's one of my favorites, but I have lots of favorites.
I also wanted to say that the piece is really poignant because somebody knows someone who has had COVID, especially after 2020.
In 2020, we were getting some survivors. In the first few awful weeks before it even hit the shores of the United States, it was like nobody survived. It was so frightening. But when I painted this, it was in the spring, we were getting people surviving the virus. And so I wanted to really pay tribute to both people that had survived, but also recognize the terrible loss for the people that did not survive. But that was almost 4 years ago. Oh, it is 4 years ago now. So, yay, we have come a long way from those days.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to
thank you,
talk about your
Rachel.
works.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
No problem. For more information about Venvi Art Gallery's current exhibition, Hidden Layers, Visible Boundaries, please visit our website at www.venviartgallery.com and click the Shows tab to view our current and upcoming exhibitions. When you click on the current exhibition, you will be able to see the press release, the installation images of the show, and the artworks that are available for purchase. For more information about Cheryl Eggleston and her artworks, check out her portfolio at www.cherylegglestonart.com. Venvi Art Gallery is open every Wednesday through Sunday from 12:30 to 5:30 p.m. Thank you for watching.